Let's get started. Today we're here to talk about 12 tips you can use for marketing your practice in 2020. Now, we'll talk about a couple things. Before we get to the tips, we're going to talk about how you need to prepare, things you should be reviewing, how to measure your past results so that you can plan ahead and make sure you're very effective, and then we're going to talk about those tips to really accelerate your growth in 2020. So, ever look at your Facebook profile and realize your description isn't even close to accurate anymore? So about a month ago, mine said I was the mother of 2 beautiful children. My son is 5 years old now. Obviously, I haven't updated it in a while. Well, practices have the same thing. You need to look at your material periodically and make sure it's accurate still. So end of the year is a great time to do this. Big things you want to look at. Start with your website. Are the photos outdated? Are they still accurate? Are they showing staff that's no longer there? You want to make sure that it's going to be a good photo that people will really be drawn to. You want to make sure your contact and services information is updated. So make sure your address is still good, phone numbers, if your staff has changed, if there's more information that should go in the bios. Another thing is maybe you've introduced a new service in this last year that's not up on your website yet. You want to make sure you get that up there too. Be sure your website is mobile friendly or responsive. The way to know that is if you pull up your website on your phone, does it look good? Do you have to pinch or zoom, or is it really slow? If so, you may need to get a mobile or a responsive website to make sure that everybody who's accessing your website can see it as great as it should look. And then check your communication options. Lots of people like to communicate in different ways. Some people like to fill out forms. Some people like to send emails. Some people love live chat. It's a great way to engage with somebody on your website as you're doing it. So look at those options and make sure you have things that people will engage with. Next, you want to check out any of the online directories out there. So most popular ones being Google My Business, Yelp, Bing. Make sure that you've claimed those directories, which means you are able to add your office hours, your phone number, contact information. You want to make sure that information is accurate. And when you can, add additional information that's going to help improve your rankings. Talk about what it is that you guys actually do. And then you want to respond to any reviews. So in a lot of these directories, there's reviews, and you want to make sure you're commenting on those either positive or negative in a professional manner. And if there's anything that looks fake, you can actually flag it, and the site will go back and take a look and potentially remove it if it looks like a fake review. So make sure you double check all of these before we go into the new year. You also want to look at your social media profiles. So if you don't have a page on any of the top networks, then you want to make sure you get that set up. So that would be a Facebook business page, Instagram, Twitter, anything else that you deem appropriate for your business. You want to make sure that you've got a good description of your services, and make sure you've got information that people will go and be able to see and share you with other people, which is one of the reasons you really want a good, solid social media page. And then you want to make sure you're social. So if anybody's commented or asked questions, make sure you respond to those. Don't just leave those hanging. It looks like you don't care, you don't pay attention to this type of thing. And finally, we want to make sure that you review any admin or technical problems. So make sure you have access to all of those different pages. Maybe you have a Yelp listing, but the person who knew how to log in is no longer with the practice. So you want to make sure you remove access from people who are no longer here, add people who can look at it, who are still in there, and then also double check your tracking. And I'll talk a little bit more about that next. But if you don't already have Google Analytics or Google Search Console set up with your website, it's a really easy thing to add, and it's a great way to do that so that you can actually understand how you're getting traffic, what keywords are driving people to your website. So the next thing we want to talk about is what happened in this past year? What have you learned before we talk about how you're going to apply that to next year? So if you've never done the measurement of your past efforts before, here's just kind of an easy walkthrough on how you can do it. Start by thinking about all the marketing efforts that you did and how much you spent. You don't need any fancy software, an Excel spreadsheet, even a piece of paper you can do this on. Then you want to identify how are you going to track the success of those. So if it's a website traffic, you can look at Google Analytics. You can see where people came from when they come to your website. You might be using a tracking phone number on different campaigns. So if you had a newspaper ad, you use one phone number. If you use an ad online, you use a different phone number. And that way you can tell who's coming from different places. And maybe you're just manually recording it. So when you've got the receptionist answering the phone and somebody says, hey, I'm looking for a new dentist, they say, how'd you hear about us? And they just manually write it down. That works too. Then you want to add in how many calls, forms, how many responses you got. And then do you know how many patients you got from that effort and what their revenue is? And the revenue can just be an average. For example, your average patient may be worth $250 a year. Think about what that average is and use that if you don't have the exact revenue by patient. So when I look at this, I can say that newspaper ads were a little bit iffy for me. I might not use those again. I definitely won't be doing the weekly coupon insert, and I'm going to rethink the Google ads that were around the whitening campaign. And then the last thing you can do is add on a return on investment tracking. And this is going to give you a good way to look at all those different efforts and compare how did the revenue I generated compare to what I actually spent on it. So you can see we added in that ROI column here. And you can see it points out exactly what was a good effort, what was a bad effort, what should I not think to do again. And then if you have any other notes that you might want to just kind of put a little bit of notation so you remember when you're going back to think about it, that's important too. So now that we know what worked, what didn't work, we're going to use that information to feed into our 2020 plan. So if you haven't added tracking, now's the time to do it. So you can see how important it is to go back and do that ROI tracking. And here's a lot of different ways you can do that. So tracking phone number, we already mentioned. You can have unique website pages. So if you're doing different efforts online, you could actually have a separate web page or a separate URL attached to each of those different efforts. So if you use Google Ads, you have one effort. If you use Facebook ads, you have a different landing page. And you can see how many visits go to those different URLs. You can train your office staff to ask a question and just note it. You can look at SEO reports. So if you're working with a company for search engine optimization, they should be providing you with regular reports on where your traffic is coming from. And if you have somebody who is a vendor supplying you with your website, helping you out with that type of thing, they should be able to give you information about how effective the programs are, whether it's just website, if it's Google Ads, if it's social media, they should be able to help you. And then finally, you can use Google Analytics to understand where your traffic to your website is coming from. And then use that knowledge and continue to track. So we kind of started this tracking spreadsheet with our 2019 efforts, continue to do that going forward. And by doing this, you'll be able to see what doesn't work, and you can stop it, and you can tweak things that are just working a little bit, but could do better. And then expand on things that do work. So for example, if you're using Google Ads and it's working well, is there a different version of the keywords that you can be using? Which kind of leads us into the tip number 2, build on your success. So if you find that newspaper ads work, what other variations can you do? So are there other newspapers in the area? Maybe there's a couple. If it's a really good offer that you think is working, use that same offer in other places. Create an ad in Facebook using it. Use that same offer on Google Ads. And if you have, the same copy, put it on your website. You can have it right up there, just what you put in the paper, to help make it that same copy that works so well in the newspaper used in lots of places. Same idea with Google Ads. Are there similar keywords? Can you expand your geography? Or maybe just test some different ads to see if you can improve it even more. And then you can always increase your budget. So if you're not getting all of the traffic with what your current is, you can add it again. So you want to make sure you have secured your website. I know we've been talking about this for a couple of years now, so I'm hoping this isn't the first everybody's heard. But you want to make sure that your website has an HTTPS right before the URL when you type it into, or when you see it once you brought it up in a web browser. It means it's secure. It's encrypted. Third parties can't view the information or steal that information. It's very important to have, especially in an industry where you're talking about healthcare and people's health information that needs to be protected. It just, even if you don't have that information online, it helps show that you're a secure company, that you care about that. One of the things, too, that you'll find is that when you look at certain websites on different browsers, some cases you just see a broken lock showing, but some cases an actual warning comes up and says, this is an insecure website. Do you want to go forward? And it actually really prevents you from going forward. So you want to make sure that you do that from your user experience, but Google is also trying to protect people. They're really pushing and asking website owners. Google Chrome was one of the first that came out with a secure padlock showing, and they're penalizing people by pushing them down in search results. So you want to make sure that you're on top of things there. Another tip you can use to do better in 2020 is use some competitive research. I actually love this one. Use online review sites to do some competitive research. There's lots of ways to do it, but this is one of the easier ones. So you go and you check them out, and you read people's reviews and see what people like about them, but most importantly, what don't they like about them. So if I were looking at some of these reviews that are showing here, the staff is rude. I was confused because I didn't understand things. I had braces and I was stuck here. Heard gossip from the employees. When you see those type of things, use that and turn it around and make things sound good for you. So I work with patients to address their unique needs. Relaxing environment, transparent pricing. All of these kind of things are going to be super important because you can use that in your own ad copy. And when somebody says, oh gosh, I hate my dentist, they keep hitting me with all these little fees, they go and Google for a new dentist, your ad pops up that says transparent pricing. That's what they're looking for. And they're more likely to respond to that ad because the other person in the area doesn't have it. And that's what they're trying to walk away from. So using competitive information, using the review sites to try to improve the way you present yourself is a great way to actually increase the number of new patients you can get next year. Now, online reputation is a really important thing. And if you're not sure about that, 70% of prospective patients want to read a review before they're selecting a dentist. It's a huge number of patients. But it's not just that. Think about any patient you have that doesn't remember your phone number or doesn't have it programmed. They're going to go and Google your practice in order to find the phone number. And when they do, they're going to see something similar to what's here. And you can see all those stars showing, right? If those stars only had 2 stars, 2.5, 1.5 stars, they're going to think twice about making an appointment with you, and they might look for somebody else. So it's really important to make sure you pay attention to your online reputation. So let's talk about what that really means. You want to claim your profiles in all the directories. Make sure you verify your information. You've claimed the profile. And this makes it so that you can actually comment back to people. You can't really comment if you haven't claimed your profile. You want to respond to reviews. Positive ones are great. Thank you. It was great seeing you. Whatever nice, happy generic comment you make works great. You also want to respond to the negative reviews. And when you respond to negative reviews, it doesn't have to be a big long story or a big long explanation. It can be as simple as, I'm sorry you had a poor experience. I'd like to talk with you about that. Or I'd like to make this right. And it can be something very simple so that other people reviewing know that you actually pay attention and you care. That's the value in that. You also do want to make it right by that person because if you can make it right, they might go back and change their rating or add an extra comment to the end of it that says, I talked to the practice, I'm feeling better about this now. And then you want to make sure you ask your patients to leave positive reviews for you. You can send them an email that says, hey, please review us. You can put up a sign in your office. There's lots of ways to do this. Now, one of the most important reasons you want people to leave positive reviews is it's going to diminish the effect of those negative reviews. So if you do have 1 or 2 negative reviews, it's okay. You can work with that. get more positive reviews, and it's actually going to diminish the results. So like in school, if you have 5 A's and 1 D, you've got an A minus. If you've got 1 2-star rating, but if you've got 10 5-star ratings, that 2-star rating is not going to matter much. So it's important to make sure you continue to collect those positive reviews. So a few ways to do that. Ask your happy patients if they'll review you. Showcase and link to the review sites from your website. Put up a sign in your office, add links to the sites from your email signatures, and you can utilize reputation marketing services. Next, you want to implement stronger search marketing efforts in 2020. This is a really great way to grow your business by making sure you're found when people are actually searching for what you do. So think about where you are today. If somebody searches on a keyword that is relevant to your particular type of practice, where do you show up? And on the right, you can see there's a couple of different types of listings here. You've got paid ads, you've got business listings, and you've got organic listings. So if somebody is searching in the organic, it means Google has decided your website is important enough and is answering the question that someone's asking. And sometimes the question is just, dentist in my area, but Google thinks that your site is one that's going to answer what that person's looking for. That's when you find yourself in the organic. The business listings, those are basically having that business site directory updated so that you'll show up for that. And then the paid ads, that's when somebody pays in order to make sure they show up on the first page, second page, depending on how much you're willing to pay is going to determine where you show. So search marketing efforts are really broken down into 2 different types of things. Search engine optimization, which is trying to get yourself to show in those organic listings. And then the pay-per-click advertising, or Google ads, they also have Bing ads. That's paying to make sure you show up on that page. And it's pay-per-click because you only pay when somebody clicks on your ad. So if you show 1,000 times, but only 10 people click, you only pay for those 10 clicks. Now, it is a bidding system, so you have to decide how much you're willing to pay per click, and that's going to determine where you fall in line. So it's possible that if you bid less than the other dentists in your area, you're actually going to show lower in the page or maybe the second or third page. But if you want to always be in that first spot, you're going to have a higher bid. Google is also smart enough, though, to compare. It doesn't make you pay more than you have to. You don't have to pay, $10 more than the person underneath you. It's a very sophisticated system for that. So depending on what your goals, you may want to use one or both of those types of marketing strategies we just talked about. If you're trying to really dominate and make sure everybody searching in the area is finding you, you may want to do both SEO and pay-per-click. If you're just trying to get yourself up right away, you need patience, you've got holes in your schedule, you're introducing a new service potentially, and you want to make sure people know you offer it, pay-per-click is a great way to get yourself shown right away. It's as simple as you set up your account, you can be showing within hours. Search engine optimization, it's a longer strategy. So you want to work with search engine optimization, and I'll talk a little bit about what that is, but and you want to make sure that this is a longer time. It could take months before you see any movement onto that organic listings, and you're also competing against everybody else in your area who's doing this. So it's not even just you going in and optimizing all your keywords, it's you looking like you're more important than the next person. So that's important to remember, is it's not just you, it's you compared to other people. So if you're not showing and you want to work on that search engine optimization side, a couple things you can do. Build a page on the website dedicated to that service. So say you're trying to target tooth whitening. Well, you want to have a page on your website that talks about tooth whitening. You want to make sure that you have internal links within it. So if somebody comes to your homepage, there's a link there to tooth whitening, so they can see that and they can click on it. You might want to consider adding a blog post about the service and using those search phrases as you're writing it. So, your guide to tooth whitening, what you need to know about tooth whitening. You want to kind of use that, and you don't need to keyword stuff. A long time ago, people keyword stuff. It doesn't matter anymore. Google knows what the intent of the page is based on the content on the page. So you want it to be natural. You want to mention it and mention it frequently, but naturally, not in an unnatural way where if somebody was reading it, it would make no sense. And then link to that blog post or those pages on your other accounts. Maybe you write a blog post and somebody else can link to it for you. Make sure you share that information so that people are naturally going to start to find it, and that's going to let Google know you've got some authority. It's an important page. If you want to start a pay-per-click campaign or Google Ads, it's a few more steps, but like I said, it's something that you can do and turn on very quickly. So you still want to build a page on your website dedicated to that service, or maybe generally on your practice. You want to sign up for an account. You need to think about what the keywords and the phrases are that you want to show for and where, because you can set the geographical constraints. So is it just your town? Is it your town plus a 10-mile radius? You can think about what that is. And depending on the service, that might actually determine what your geography is. Because if you do something that's a little bit more unique, you might be able to advertise even farther. Whereas kind of the basic dental services, if you have a lot of competition, you may not need to go much farther. You create the ads, you set your budget, how much you're willing to pay per click, along with how much in general you're willing to pay. And those are the basics. We actually have white papers and other webinars that you can watch if you really want to learn a little bit more about how to do this. So the next trick that we suggest is building a content calendar. And what this is really about is thinking about all at once what it is that you want to do. And you don't have to do it for the whole year. Maybe you want to do it a quarter at a time. But you want to build a calendar so you can think ahead versus waking up on a Monday morning and saying, what am I going to post about this week? This makes sure your communications are cohesive, they all connect to each other. So there's a lot of different ideas about what you can use for content. And the places you'll be posting the content are like your social media accounts, maybe you have a blog, maybe you want to do some feature on your website, or maybe you have advertising going. So when you have that message in multiple places, you can have this calendar that's going to help you understand where you're going when. So quizzes, polls, videos, lots of different things that you can post. This is just kind of a general idea of what your calendar could look like. It doesn't need to be fancy. It can be done in Excel. It can be done in a Word document. Think, is there a theme that you want to talk about? What kind of social post idea can you do? Is there a certain blog article you might want to tie into it also? So it's the new year. You want to make sure you reconnect with your patients. So your social post might be, hey, don't forget, you need to be seen every 6 months. Your new benefits have kicked in. Let's get that first visit on the books. And then a blog article could be, what happens if you don't see a dentist regularly? And you can use that article and you can share that in different places. So some good and some bad. Make sure when you are posting, you post news, events, tips, things that are tasteful. Success stories are really great. Things with photos, people love seeing. Before and after are great. Photos of your office or your staff to build a little transparency into who you are. What you don't want to post are things that are going to be controversial. Angry responses to upset patients, which sometimes happens. Things political. You don't want to do it personal. You're trying to present a very professional front. Now, you also want to talk about your patient communications. This is a great way to improve your patient satisfaction, make sure people are coming back to you every 6 months. So think about, are you doing everything you can or you should? What's your no-show rate? Do you have a lot of people who don't show up? Are you using text messages? If you haven't been using text messages to remind patients about their visits, now's a great time to start doing that. Patients really like them. It's non-intrusive. Just something to think about. And are you just trying to keep in touch with your patients too? Let them know who you are, anything exciting happening, any opportunity to bring new people in. So here's just kind of an overview of some of the different types of channels you can be using and what kind of communications you can be sending and what kind of works best. So things like special occasions, it's the Christmas season coming up and maybe you want to wish people a happy holidays or happy birthday. There's lots of different ways to do these different things. So if you haven't had a regular communication schedule, here's a couple of ideas that you might want to consider. Reaching out to patients who haven't been seen in the last 12 months. Now's a great time to bring them in. Identify patients with treatment plans that have not been scheduled yet. That happens in a lot of cases. You make a suggestion, recommendation to people, and they say, oh, let me think about that, and I'll call you to schedule it. And they just haven't. Reach out and get them on the schedule. You can send quarterly newsletters. You can share holiday greetings, or maybe you're going to do some special services at different times of year. Graduation, wedding season. Talk about whitening services being available. Now, one of the newer things that people are using on their website is live chat. It's a great way to connect with people who are visiting your website and engage with them immediately versus waiting for them to call you. 42% of online consumers prefer live chat compared to 23% for email and 16% for social media or forums. So if you are able to implement live chat on your website, it's a great way to talk with people live. And it usually starts with just kind of an automated message that pops up. And when that person engages with you, that's when you get noticed that you need to continue. It's not like you're just sitting there and sending up a message to everybody who's visiting your website. Benefits, you get 30% more website leads by using a live chat software. More potential patients coming in. You improve that patient satisfaction because maybe somebody's there and wants to ask, hey, I need to schedule an appointment. You can start to interact with them at that point. It increases your return on investment because a lot of the people who come to visit and bounce away, you might be able to actually grab them and keep them there. And it saves time too. It might actually save time versus somebody calling you up on the phone. You can just sit and kind of chat with them a little bit. Now, the other couple tips, we're down to the end here. You want to make sure you're leveraging social media if you have not yet started that. And it's really important. What you might not realize is 70% of your patients are on Facebook regularly. People are using social media and they're using it a lot. So there's benefits if you're not on there yet. Increase your leads, your referrals, more traffic to your website. It keeps you top of mind with your patients because they can be part of your, they can be following your page and they can see when you're posting up new things. It improves your SEO performance because you have a way to bring people to your website. It's measurable. You can see how many people view your post or how many people click on it. It's very cost effective. You just need to put some time into it, which is great. So a couple things that you want to make sure you're on top of. If you do have that social media account, you want to make sure you have a branded cover photo. You want to have a professional profile photo. Have your practice information in there. And that's, not only in my dental practice. These are the hours that we work. This is the best way to get a hold of me. These are the services we provide. And then you want to make sure you're providing engaging information. 79% of Americans are on Facebook and 70% use it daily. So one of the things that you want to consider are ads. If you haven't started with Facebook ads, it might be something to test out, right? With Facebook ads, you put together kind of a post, an image, you can see it on the right-hand side, and you're able to make it visible to more people than otherwise would see it. You can promote certain services. You can use it for branding. It's a pay-per-click model, so you pay based on when somebody clicks your ad, not just to have it showing. So it's similar to the Google Ads model of, you kind of bid to have things show for people. Now, Facebook ads work with a couple of different things you can do. You can run a like campaign, so you can have people come to your practice website or come and like you. Click that little like thumbs up. You can have a click to call. So if somebody sees your ad and clicks, they can actually call you directly from there. And this is really good too. When people are using social media, a lot of times they're doing it on their phone. And then you can drive traffic to a page. So if you have a page on your website that talks about a certain service you're trying to promote, you can go to your page, learn more about that service, have them submit a form to request a visit there. Now, there's a couple of different types of ads you can do. You can have a single image. In that single image, it's a great way to grab some attention. It's straightforward. It's really obvious what you're doing. You can use video. Video is really big right now. Everybody loves to have something engaging and they can start to watch that video without even kind of clicking away. So it's a great way to start to engage people a little bit further. Or you can use a carousel or slideshow. And this is, right now you probably see this a lot with shopping sites. I know it's covering my Facebook. And every little picture is a different item you can buy. Well, you can do the same thing for your practice. And you can talk about different services, each one in a different window. People can kind of scroll through to see what the different things are that you guys can help them with. So another thing you can think about implementing in 2020 to help improve your marketing and your practice performance is presenting treatment options. So most dentists have a case acceptance rate of just 50 to 70%. But the average revenue is really, really high. So if you can increase that case acceptance rate, even just one more treatment plan per week, you could bring in a lot more revenue. So the way you want to do this is make sure you're not just telling people what they need, but you want to show them what they need. Great way to do this would be having a slideshow or videos that's going to demonstrate what it is that you're recommending them, some cost information that you can share with them, and things that are printable, things that they can bring home and think about it if they're not ready to purchase or not ready to schedule that appointment immediately. You know, having that information for them to go back and think about it versus just you saying, yeah, this is what we recommend. It's going to make it easier. It's going to keep it more top of mind. It's going to give them something to refer back to. So if you're not doing anything to show clients what it is that you're trying to recommend for them, this is a great time to implement that. And then finally, you want to test new strategies. Lots of different strategies you can be using. We've talked about a good number of them today. The ones that are kind of darker are the ones that we highly recommend you get started with if you're not already using them. And I don't want to say it's less important as the color fades, but you know, your website's the most important thing. That's this pivot of everything else. Make sure you're on those online review sites. If you're not using social media, I mean, referrals, you're getting those anyways, hopefully. Directories. Those are the things that you want to pay the most attention to if you have to choose what can I actually get done. And then as you kind of go out a little bit more, those are the things that are going to make an impact, things that you can try. So if you haven't yet done some of these things, or if you've done things and you feel like I need to do more, here's some ideas. We also talked about a lot more earlier in the presentation. So I'm going to open this up for questions. If you have any questions, you should be able to find the question button within the GoToWebinar. All of the things that we talked about today, we can help you with. We have just introduced a new patient case acceptance tool that's going to give you the ability to look at those kind of things and share that information with your patients so they're more apt to actually do the treatment plans you're suggested. We also offer Facebook ads. We're known as being a premier website provider, search engine optimization. We can help you with anything here or just answer any questions that you might have. So feel free. You can give us a call. You can visit our website, or you can send any questions that you have right now. So somebody is saying, would you stop paying for a phone book if you're not getting any new patients in from your listing? I know this is really difficult for people. To stop something like the phone books, but most patients are not finding dentists through phone books anymore. Most people are going online, they're searching in the area, they're looking at review sites. You know, there probably are a couple out there, but most people are not using phone books anymore. So if you can take that money and reallocate it into something else that's going to be more effective, I definitely would suggest that. If you've got a big budget and you don't mind spending the money, you can let it go. But if your budget's a little bit limited and you want to make sure that you're getting the best return on your investment, maybe you want to consider testing out a Google ad instead or doing something on social media. Okay, here's another question. If you have the budget to pick one item, search engine optimization or pay per click, which would you pick? This is a tough question. It's not. The trick is you need to understand what your goals are. So if long term you want to be found by people who are searching in your area, and you want to make sure you're always at the top of the listing, then I would invest in SEO. It's a long-term strategy, but it also lasts long-term. If you need to get people in your office right away, if you've got a lot of holes in your schedule you need to fill up, I would suggest going with a pay-per-click because you can turn it on, you can turn it off. It's immediate. If you need to be immediately showing on that first page, pay-per-click's the only way to do that. The SEO is really a long-term strategy, and it's going to pay off. You implement SEO, it will pay off. So it does. It's worth doing, but it's just going to take a little bit longer. But then it lasts longer also. And then actually some more clarification for 30 plus offices if you were doing that. If you're doing it for 30 offices, I guess it depends how they show today. Are they all showing up in the map listings when you search for them? If they're showing up in the map listings, you probably can continue going with the search engine optimization. If they're not showing up in the map listings locally, you might still want to go with pay-per-click if you're trying to get it in. Or if it's for 30 plus offices, maybe some offices need that pay-per-click boost. Some of them don't. So it might be something that you have to do on an individual basis. Let's see. One more question here. So do I really need to focus on online review sites? Yes, I definitely would encourage it. And for the reasons I've already said, if you're not paying attention to the online review sites, at least with your own listings, you don't have to worry about the competitors if you don't have the time for that, but make sure that people aren't saying negative things about you. And if they are saying negative things about you, you need to address that and you need to respond to the review, but then also look internally. Is there anything that you can improve in your office to stop more negative reviews? Because those negative reviews, if they're happening, maybe they're not. If everything's positive, then don't worry about it. But anything that's negative, it's going to impact your profitability directly. You're going to lose patience. That's unfortunately the way the world works today. So many people are seeing them, and you don't even have to search for reviews. You don't have to search reviews. You just search on the name, and the reviews show. So that's why it's really important. Another question I'm seeing, how important is LinkedIn for marketing to new patients? So LinkedIn is really more of a professional network. It's where professionals go to connect, get career advice, look for jobs, showcase who they are. So I would say if you're marketing to new patients, the thing to keep in mind is that on LinkedIn, people aren't looking for a dentist. It's not top of mind. Now, I would say you can try it, but I would always go to Facebook first, because in Facebook, they're having more personal conversations. People are, who do you recommend in the area? I see that a lot in my feed. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for that. So if you don't have a presence on Facebook, somebody can't recommend you to somebody else. On LinkedIn, you're not going to see people asking, hey, I'm looking for a dentist. It's just not the type of thing they're doing. So if you have extra budget and you want to test it or put a little effort into it, go for it. I think it's good to have a professional profile for your dentist out there, but that doesn't mean you have to use it as a marketing vehicle. It's, just a good place to be where the dentists themselves could use it for some professional networking. They could connect with other colleagues. They could join some groups that might be related to like the area associations and things like that. So it's not for marketing, but it could be used for professional development. Okay. So another question, what are the best kind of Facebook groups to join to market our services? Local ones, regional ones. When I look at my Facebook, I've got, probably at least a dozen groups for my town, and they all talk about different things. Some of them are just neighbors being friendly. Some of them are, needing recommendations and things like that. So look for those types of areas and know that you're not always just going to be out there promoting. Sometimes you're just replying and you're adding comments, and by doing that, people are going to see who you are. So if you join a group and somebody is just kind of talking about something in the area, you can comment on it and they're going to see who you are, and maybe they'll click to go learn a little bit more about you. So that's what I would look for, is local things who the patients that you might be working with, the area that they're in. So I think I'm going to close things down now. We've gone a little bit longer than I had hoped to go, but I think this was great. We had some good questions, and I'm more than happy to stay here as long as I need to. If you do have more questions, you will be getting an email within 24 hours with a link to the presentation, a link to the video, and from there you can email us back if you need to. There'll be a phone number that you can give us a call, or you can give us a call right now. There's people on the phone who can answer your questions. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and I hope you have a great day.